There's a town in Arizona called Glob, named for a nugget. It's a mining town, specializing formerly in gold and silver, now devoted to copper. The smog produced daily by the local smelter poisons the air for 50 miles downwind. The smell is like that of a decomposing jellyfish. Nobody here seems to mind. The Glob businessmen have built their golf course and country club at the foot of the 300-foot-high tailings dump. They are proud of the dump. When the wind blows, the air is filled with fine white powder. The golfers inhale the powder and the gases, and they swell with pleasure. Mention pollution, and they say, "Son, that smells like money to me." Aha, where did I hear that line before? Of course they're right. I like Glob myself. You get used to the stink. I drop in there every other week to pick up my mail, buy some groceries, and have a drink or two before heading back to my job in the mountains. For instance, I had a late lunch at the U Et Yet Cafe, then parked my 68 VW Fastback in front of the Broad Street Social Club. Closed. The only hippie bar in town. Closed. Probably because of my friend Greenspan, who played here last week. Bob Greenspan and the Monkey Wrench Gang. His new song, Big Tits, Braces and Zits, a ballad of adolescent passion, had been a hit. But as usual, he overdosed on ego and bourbon, and insulted first the management, then the audience, then the Glob law enforcement people. Not a wise thing to do. Now I suppose he's back in Boulder. I drove on up the street, following the parade of gleaming new welfare-financed pickup trucks. Every Chicano, Navajo, and Redneck Anglo in the state drives a pickup. They can't afford condoms, diaphragms, or birth control pills, but they all seem to find the financing for a $10,000 Ford Ranger, or Chevy Apache, or Dodge Power Wagon. Wish I could do it. My poor old Nazi Volkswagen is burning oil, has a slipping clutch, no shocks, squealing brakes, the floor corroded by battery acid, and a sprung hood that I have to tie down with a rope. The bumper sticker in front of me reads, "Ass, gas, or grass. Nobody rides for free." I like that sentiment better than what I saw when I pulled into a slot close to the Ruins bar. The sticker on the rear of a tractor-like pickup truck, gun rack in the cab, said, "Did the coyotes get your deer?" Being an old-time coyote lover, I resented the bigotry and yokel ignorance of that remark. There was a broad-tip marking pen in my car. With heavy strokes of indelible black ink, I wrote across the windshield of the truck, "Did the rednecks get your coyote?" Like Nietzsche says, live dangerous. He was a mountain man, too. I straightened the yellow nylon carnation on the hood of my VW. Every sporty car should wear a boutonniere, and felt my way into the bar. Out of the dazzling desert sun into the darkness of the cave. I ordered a tall double gin screwdriver with lots of orange juice. A healthy drink. A man should take care of himself. The body is the temple of the soul. I braced my foot on the rail, steadied my right hand with my left, and drank. Feeling better, I ordered a second and smiled at the half-dozen gloomy, mean, hostile, ravaged faces ranged around the bar, staring at me. "Why do they call this place the Ruins?" I said. Nobody answered. None of them even laughed. I'm not going to get out of here alive, I thought, unless I crawl out on my hands and knees, feeling along the wall for the door. Maybe not then. Silently, the bartender served me another screwdriver, took my money, leaned back with folded arms. A baseball bat stood in the corner. Ignoring me now, the regulars resumed their mumbling conversation. 2 hard hats, 2 cowboy hats, and 2 crew cuts. The bartender was bald, a tough egg. He smoked an economical cigar, which had at least this virtue. It neutralized the all-pervasive stench of the copper smelter, but not the smell of hatred. I rubbed my hairy jaws and sidled off to the jukebox to check out the musical values of this here metallurgical community. As I'd suspected, there was no Gustav Mahler available, no Purcell, no Palestrina, not even filthy Mozart. Nothing but the standard country western stuff from a big city in the east called Nashville. Music to hammer out fenders by at the Shade Tree Body Shop. Music to vomit by after a shift in the copper pits. Take this job and shove it. I picked out a couple of Johnny Paycheck numbers and retired for a minute to the men's pissoir. I read the writing on the wall, the voice of the people. We'll trade 3 blind crabs for 2 with no teeth. Suggests the political situation in these southwestern states. But what about this one? If you ain't a cowboy, you ain't shit. Grub for thought there. I looked at myself quickly in the cracked fragment of mirror screwed to the wall. Found consolation in the fact that I still didn't look as bad as I felt, or feel as bad as I looked. I returned to my friends at the bar. None of them spoke or looked at me. I studied the placards tacked to the wall above the ranks of bottles. This is a high-class place. Act respectable. Helen Waite is our credit manager. If you want credit, go to Helen Waite. Finishing my second health drink, it occurred to me that more and more we communicate with one another as indirectly as possible. Through wall placards, through graffiti, through bumper stickers, headgear, lapel buttons, t-shirts, anything but face-to-face exchange. Perhaps this has been obvious to everyone else for a long time. Perhaps I've been living too long in the mountains. Perhaps I should rejoin what they call civilization. If there is one, I'm willing to listen to reason, if I hear any. Direct communication. I turned to the morose face on my right, a new arrival. He was wearing a baseball cap with the legend Beef stitched on the forepeak. His mate's cap said Cat. Mr. Beef and Mr. Cat. Where you fellas from? I asked politely. Mr. Beef stared at me for a while. Flat Rock, he finally said. Where's that? The long stare. East of here. Why do they call it Flat Rock? Careful, I thought. You're not getting out of here alive if you're not careful. Receiving no immediate answer, I repeated the question. Why Flat Rock? Live dangerous. Mr. Beef exchanged a glance with his taciturn friend. Mr. Cat nodded. Mr. Beef said, because of the rain. Because of the rain? I paused for a moment. What do you mean, because of the rain? I pushed my empty glass toward the bartender. The way it comes down, he said. The way it comes down? Yeah. Mr. Beef toyed with his can of Coors, scowling at his thumbs. Like a cow, he said. The bartender brought me my third drink. The turning of the screw. I had a momentary feeling of vertigo, but I plunged recklessly ahead. The rain comes down like a cow, I said. That's right, Mr. Cat said and raised his head. 2 men stared at me solemnly. Like a cow pissing on a flat rock, Mr. Beef said. I paid for the next round and recorded the story for posterity in my cerebral files. What do I have against rednecks? Nothing. I am here to defend them. My father has been a side-hill farmer, a logger, a school bus driver most of his life. My little brother is a construction worker and truck driver. Another younger brother is now a cop in L.A. I'm a redneck myself, born and bred on a sub-marginal farm in Appalachia, descended from an endless line of dark-complected, lug-eared, beetle-browed, insolent barbarian peasants, a line reaching back to the dark forests of Central Europe and the alpine caves of my Neanderthal primogenitors. Like my neighbor Marvin Bundy says, he lives on the other side of Wolf Hole Mountain, like Marvin says, us poor folk gotta stick together. A few words about my neighbor. Marvin Bundy is a poet and female liberationist. Woman, says Marvin, I liberate a woman every chance I get. Woman's place is in my arms. The destiny of her anatomy is in my hands. True enough, Marvin. Us nature mystics gotta stick together. However, it is with Mr. Bundy's poetry that I am here primarily concerned. The other day he came over the Gap and asked me to read his, quote, latest masterpiece, end quote. Well, Marvin, I said, I have yet to see your first. Read this, he said, and I don't need no smart aleck criticism. Invictus. Did the coyotes get your deer? 40,000 shit kickers can't be wrong. Did the screwworms get your cow? Yeah, that's my song. Them goddamn Sahara clubbers, them candy-ass defenders of fur bearers, them sun-bitchin' foes of the earth, I say, shoot 'em all full of errors. Googly-eyed, bleeding hearts, cryptic communist pointy heads, little old ladies in inner tubes, all need brain retreads. Mining is everybody's future. Sahara go home. Exxon come along. Save oil. Burn conservationists. That's my song. Now entering Utah. Set watches back 50 years. Golden goddamn beehive state. Full of busy buzzing bees. Latter-day shitheads. Cottonwood trees. JCs. 95,000 us deer slayers. 95 deer. Got 92 last year. There's one left in Blue Mountain. One down in Slickhorn Gulch. And the other one's a queer. Don't care what them Bambi lovers say. Like I tell my wife, every time you shoot a deer, you're saving some cow's life. Out of work, hungry, eat a environmentalist. They chase like jungle boots, but sure won't be missed. Putting on weight, losing my hair. I got a new boat, got a new pickup, so I don't care. And them that can't swim, but I learned to float. Got my CB radio, got my hook and bullet news, got my old woman and 11 kids, and they never wear shoes. So long, that's my song. Marvin is a special case, a coy and crafty yeoman, not a standardized rustic. More common, perhaps, as a young fellow I once worked with in the Coronado National Forest down along the Mexican border in Arizona. I'll call him Calvin. We patrolled the woods and collected garbage from the public campgrounds. Dumping our load one afternoon at the forest landfill site, we saw a large chulu, or coatimundi, picking its way across a mound of garbage, looking for something to eat. The chulu is a rare animal on the American side of the border. It looks like a hybrid mix of bear, anteater, and raccoon. A strange and interesting creature. Calvin's immediate reaction when we spotted the animal was, gee, I wish I had my gun. I argued with him, but it was a waste of time. Like most rednecks, rural or urban, he could see nothing of interest in the world of nature unless he was trying to shoot it, or set a hook in its throat, or trap it and skin it. Same with humans. After work that evening, I suggested to Calvin that we go into Nogales and pick up a couple of women. Calvin shrugged. I ain't too interested in girls, he mumbled, and then he gave me a shy, sly, sidelong look. But you ought to see my gun collection. Not that I'm against guns. As I've said elsewhere, I keep a few myself. The freeborn American's right to own and bear firearms must remain inviolate. Nor am I against hunting and fishing when the prey is abundant and the primary object is to put meat on the table. I do think we should take it easy out here in the West on our dwindling deer population. The mountain lions need those deer more than we do. This thought leads me to that contemporary phenomenon, the instant redneck. The natural redneck comes from the country, from small towns, and is generally too dumb or too stubborn to leave. The instant redneck comes from the city or the affluent suburbs where his father has made a lot of money. Cushioned by a nice trust fund or comfortable inheritance, the instant redneck migrates west, buys himself a little hobby ranch, a pair of tight jeans, a snap-button shirt, one of those comical hats with a rolled brim like the male models wear in Marlboro ads, and a $90 pair of tooled leather boots with undershot heels and pointy toes for kicking snakes in the ass, like those you see on the feet of pretty young men walking their toy poodles in Greenwich Village. Now in full cowboy costume, the instant redneck buys his first pickup truck, a huge, lumbering 4x4 tractor-like gas hog of a Deus Machina, loaded with roll bars, mag rims, lug tires, KC road lights, gun rack, spotlight, AM/FM cassette player, Kleenex dispenser, gyroscopic beer can holder, CB for Cretan Broadcasting Radio, and a Tampax slot. He buys a gun for the gun rack, pops the top from his first can of Coors, a sweet green provincial brew mass-produced from reprocessed sewage water near Denver, and roars off in all directions to tear up the backcountry and blast away at the wildlife. The instant redneck, a real man at last. But not interesting. Much too familiar a type. More problematic were those chaps surrounding me on all sides at the Ruins Bar in Glob, Arizona, on a hot summer afternoon in 1981. Two more cowboys had come in, accompanied by their heifers, all wearing the funny hats, the tight pants, the flowered shirts. You could tell the cowboys from the cowgirls by the wider hips on the cowboys. The girls looked like they couldn't calve a salamander. And then a cool young woman, elegant as a sylph, golden-haired, walked in and sat down at the bar one stool away from me. She wore oversized black sunglasses, opaque, inscrutable, and a T-shirt printed with the image of a life-size owl. Two great protruding eyes confronted me. Like an oaf, I stared. The lady gave me a slight smile. I was about to move onto her adjoining stool when a burly fellow came between us, taking the seat, putting an arm about the girl, and a large hairy elbow on the bar in front of my face. The bartender was silent as he poured my fourth double-shot screwdriver. I was getting tired of the orange juice, but figured I'd best stick to the regimen. Strict self-discipline, that's the secret of a full, healthy, productive life. I stared at the blonde, aware of the owl. "You like my girl," the large fellow said. He was a Mexican, a Chicano, with a round, brown, solemn face, dark eyes, the shoulders of a fullback. A Mexican, but a big Mexican. "Now, Primo," the woman began. "You like her, eh?" The dark eyes were aimed at me, not at the wall, not at the mirror, not at the other guy. I knew he probably carried a knife, a switchblade. All cholos carry switchblades, everybody knows that. The trouble was he was so big and ugly and mean, he wouldn't need a knife. My sole weapon was my superior wasp intelligence, which only functions, however, in retrospection. "I'm never getting out of here alive," I said to myself, but aloud. Primo smiled, laughed, gripped my shoulder in his enormous paw, and said, "You're right, man, you're not. Better buy us a drink." Under the volcano. I was glad to buy time by buying Primo and his blondie each a drink. Bar buddies. He called me Grizzly Adams. I called him Pachuco. We discussed his occupation. He was an operating engineer, he said with pride, a cat skinner, a bulldozer driver. I asked him the best way to disable a D9. "You mad at the company?" he asked. "That's right," I said. Primo recommended pure shellac, about 2 quarts in the fuel tank, and a few handfuls of fine sand in the crankcase. "But don't touch my machine," he added, with a slow, smiling flash of teeth, gripping my shoulder again. I could hear the gristle squeak. We spoke of my trade. Fire tower lookout, lightning on the tin roof, the sound of trees breathing, 10 days of solitaire, 2 days of glob. "That'd drive me crazy," Primo said. "What you do for love? Screw chipmunks? You must be crazy as a bedbug, Grizz." To the bartender he said, "Bring old Grizzly here another double OJ before I have to cut him up." "Why not?" I said. Never argue with the man who's buying the drinks. Growing more reckless, foolish, even suicidal, I kept leering at his woman. "Take off them big shades, honey," I said. "Let me see the light of your eyes. La luz de mi vida." She smiled, but shook her head. Probably had a black eye, thanks to her pet gorilla here. Maybe 2. He looked like the type that would do it. "I like your owl," I said. "Both of them." I was seeing double. Better get out of here, fairly soon. For the first time, I noticed the 4 young thugs in a nearby booth watching me. Compadres, but not my compadres. La raza here and everywhere. "Viva la causa," I heard myself shouting. Not a friendly face anywhere, except Primo himself, my primero, sitting here beside me. He whacked me on the back. "What cause you talking about, Grizz?" His eyes were glowing now, reflecting perhaps the blood in my own. His grin looked bigger, more fierce than a scowl. His slap made me spill part of my drink. I muttered 3 Spanish words, 5 little syllables that one should never utter aloud in the border states unless one is prepared to die. I could see the words floating on the smoke before us. The chatter came to a stop. The cowboys looked at me with pity, but not much pity. Drunken hippie, they were thinking, a dog's death, kicked to pieces in a dusty ditch. And I was thinking, I think, well, what the hell, this is it. Never apologize, never explain. Primo turned his glass in his big hands, looking solemn and serious. Grizz, he said, we better step outside for a few minutes. Right, I agreed. Really, the happy hour. I got up and looked for the front door. No, he said, this way. One arm around my shoulders, he guided me out the back door and into a sun-bleached alley among the crumpled garbage cans. Blinking and swaying, I turned to face him. The sunlight dazzled my eyes. Primo looked for a moment like my brother Howard, the dark one, the truck driver, the high steel man. Grizz, he said, you know what you said in there? I said nothing. You must be crazy. I was silent. Primo said, I'm not going to kill you, Grizz. You're too drunk and ugly and stupid, but don't come back in there. If I was you, I'd go out in the desert for a while and crawl under a bush and get some sleep. But before you pass out, try to think about some things, if you've got any brains left. He watched me. I watched the hard edge of a silver cloud move above the skyline of the backside of the Dominion Hotel. A door slammed. Primo, I said, or meant to say, but he was gone. Never apologize, never explain. I stepped carefully down the alley, leaned around the corner, and felt my way brick by brick back to my car. Some son of a bitch had snatched the flour off the hood. I got in and drove out of town, through the shining miasma of my drunkenness, turned off the highway, and went up a steep dirt road that led to a pass between a pair of cactus-studded hills. I stopped there and shut off the motor. I could hear the insane singing of the cicada in the desert heat. About 102 degrees in the shade. But there was no shade, not a mesquite tree in sight. I thought of Hemingway, Lieutenant Henry, walking through the rain. Catherine has just died in childbirth. Much to the hero's relief, no, that's not it. It's the screaming of the locusts defying the sun, which sounds in a way like rain. Towering clouds hung in the far horizon, shot with flickering incandescence 20 miles to the east. Thunder rumbled. God growling at me again. I don't care. I ain't afeard of him. Not with that big .357 Magnum in the glove compartment, under the gloves. Ain't getting out of here alive. Ain't none of us getting out of here alive. That's the way it is, boys, and that's the way it's meant to be. It's hard, but it's fair. Is that gun loaded? Of course it's loaded. What good is a gun that ain't loaded? Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Sure, people with guns kill more people, but that's only natural. It's hard, but it's fair. My God, but this car is hot. I stumbled out, opened the flowerless hood. The engine was gone. Damn Nazi automobile. I took out my canvas cot, unfolded it, set it up on the shady side of the car. Why sleep in the ground if you don't have to? Only an idiot sleeps in the ground from choice. Little bugs crawl in your ears. A panicked pissant scrambling over your eardrum. Sounds like a horse marching through cornflakes. Horrible, undesirable, unnecessary sensation. Miles below, the tough little town of Glob wavered under heat waves. Went to the town library once, asked the librarian for a book, Philosophy of William James. The librarian, a middle-aged lady with a mustache, began rummaging through her card index under the letter F. I lay down on the cot, placing my hat over my eyes. Who built this old road? Why? Who knows? Who cares? Who found that big nugget down there? Forgotten now. I thought of my brother. I thought of Mr. Bundy hunting his cactus-fed cows along the Utah line, 70 years in the sun. Forgotten, Fear no more. Primo? Somewhere in Missouri, a truck driver named Hinton pulls into an all-night truck stop. Kidneys aching. Forget him. I thought of my father at 78, still going out to the woods every day to cut locust posts for the coal mines, pit props for the miners down there in the dark. Forget them too. I thought of those who do the world's work and are never paid enough and never will be, and they rise and are beaten down, and they rise again and are beaten down again, and always lose. The clouds grumbled on the east. God crept closer, mumbling. I raised my right fist, shook it at the old bastard, and passed out. To wake in the dark, hours later, there were no stars. A soft and misty rain was falling on my face.